So, members, I would like to welcome you to this question. It is research methods. So, in this question, we are looking at research so that we are able to be researchers. When you start the research methods, the end results, the outcomes are that you are a researcher. Then you say, I am a teacher. Well, then how can I be a researcher? So for us, we say you cannot be a teacher who doesn't research, because all that you teach are products of research. So why should you just be adopting what other people have researched and for you are not researching? Then it means you remain on the same level, not increasing, not reducing, because only because you graduated. So the word research comes from two words. The word research comes from two words, re and search. Re, the first word is re, then search. So you can put a hyphen, re dash search, hyphen search. That word re is a short form for the word repeat. Is a short word for repeat. What are we repeating? We are repeating to search. The Baganda have a saying that when when you lose like a spoon, you don't look for it in one place. That even a spoon can be looked for in the bathroom. You can go to the bathroom and look for the what? For the spoon. Yes. Meaning that when we are doing research, we are not limited with options. You look for something from everywhere. That means that in our studies of research, you will not make solutions with basic and haphazard information. You've seen in our communities where you draw conclusion. You are the one who did it, and afterwards you find somebody else the one who has done it. Meaning you drew conclusion without repeating it to search. We listen and listen again. We look and look again. We test and test again. We rewrite and write over and over. That's characteristic of research. So the other word research is to find out. Yes, is to find out. What do we find out? We find out the problem. We find out the problem. We find out the cause of the problem, and also find out the solution for the problem. So other scholars say, so when there is no problem, so we don't have anything to find out. Yeah, sometimes we can anticipate what's challenging people. It's not necessarily a problem, but there is a challenge that needs to be addressed. So that also prompts us to go forward to find out how to make to eliminate the challenge. So here we shall look at the techniques of research. But meanwhile, we ask ourselves, what are the aims of educational research? What are the aims of educational research? Why do we do research in education? You find out many reasons, but we here in education, we conduct research to explore educational problems and find out the possible solutions to them. We also use research to explain the concepts the proper way. We also use research in understanding human behavior. We find out why are people behaving some way, not the other way. We use research in improving curriculum, improving curriculum, improving methods, language, and the materials we use in teaching. Improving curriculum, methods, language, and the materials we use in teaching. That tells us that if we not research, the curriculum will not be improved. Even the teaching methods will not be improved. The language we use, we cannot improve it. The materials we use will not be improved. Also do research to develop and test education theories. Mhm. So if there is a theory in education, we do not believe anything unless we have tested to see whether they are applicable. You don't just apply anything without testing it after research. We also use it educate research to improve practices, educational practices. If you so tells us that if you do research but your practices remain the same without improving, then there is a problem. Research is also used in developing new services and products. So in education, we can develop new courses, new programs, new management systems, and management concepts. We can also use the research in education to improve policies. Then we ask ourselves, how do we improve or achieve educational objectives through research? The simple words you find details are then through descriptions. That means education can describe for us what is happening. Description, prediction, we are able to tell, maybe next year things are going to be this other way. That's prediction. We can predict what is going to happen in the future. Improvement. Improvement is about making it better. Another one is explanation. We are able to give a reason why things happen some way. Another is designing and creation. Designing and creation. Okay. So that means with the research we can design a new concept and create something new from even that does not yet existed. So there are types of, right there, types of reasoning in education research. Hmm. Now we have two types of reasoning, two forms of reasoning. One of them is called inductive reasoning. Inductive. Mhm. The other is deductive reasoning. Deductive. So, inductive reasoning is often referred to as the bottom-up approach. Bottom-to-up approach. Bottom-to-up approach. Bottom-to-up. Hmm. So in that reasoning, we start from what is unknown. Yes. So in the to have inductive reasoning, we observe. The researcher observes the phenomenon, okay, then comes up with the patterns of what you have observed. If it's a tree, you can observe and say it has red flowers. Describe. It is you who is who observes, and then you describe. So you plant your idea on the phenomena. So that is one of the reasoning. It starts from general to specific. Mm. So if the person is describing something using inductive reasoning. You induce your idea on what you see because of what you've observed. But the other reason is the way we call deductive, is starting from up to bottom. For that person, if it will say this is how a mango tree is, for him say no. But if you are defining another tree, he goes and just tests that it assumes that it's not even a mango, but he knows the ingredients the chemicals that are in the mango tree, picks a piece of it, goes and tests it and says, let the results be the ones to tell me other than my own idea or observation. Then the results say, oh yeah, this is it. It is not, it is a mango or it is not. So deductive reasoning is not dependent on your own judgment. It's dependent on on what you are investigating other than your own judgment. So if you went to the hospital and somebody was to say to use reasoning or the inductive, the other one we did faster earlier, and you say you have malaria, would want to see you shivering, or when he touches, he sees you hot. But the other one who wants to say deductive reasoning will know is shivering and is hot and it's malaria. No, it might not be. Will want to go and test you in the laboratory, and then after say, yeah, there is malaria or there is not. She will tell you that not everything you see and you feel that is it. You need to expose something to empirical tests or experiment for you to draw a conclusion. That is it. Now that is the deductive. Deductive, it does not depend on your own observation or reasoning. It depends on experimental results. That's why we say that inductive reasoning is more qualitative. So you can define it by words, characteristics. But deductive is quantitative. You define it by number, statistics. Deductive is quantitative. You define it by numbers, which you obtain from experiments. Again, others say qualitative, inductive is artistic appearance, about appearance of things. But deductive is scientific, is about the ingredients that make up the, the element. According to how I see that speaker, it must be a strong speaker. The music that can come out of it. The other one say, let me go and measure the coil that produces that sound. The deductive reasoner, so that coil cannot produce that sound you're talking about. Hmm. So that's why when you are writing there, you say that we attach inductive reasoning to qualitative research and deductive reasoning to quantitative research. So for that reason, I can still talk about what we call research approaches. Research approaches. research approaches. We have three research approaches. If we are to understand research, I need to have some time element. Oh, this is time. Is it right? Okay, so we have three research approaches. We have what we call qualitative research approach, and then quantitative research approach, and the mixed research approach. So when you hear qualitative research approach, and you're finding something written that is quite qualitative, you will always see words. Qualitative research is research that is presented in terms of words or narratives. So there you find that if it is research, and then you ask teachers, why are the learners not doing well, they will tell you we are not paid so well, and then we some of the teachers here are not trained, and then they will give you many reasons. Parents don't even pay. That is qualitative. It is narrative in terms of words. But if we are to say, because that is still in reasoning, it is more inductive. If you are putting it in reasoning, someone is putting his or her own observations and opinions. So I will say that qualitative research, because it is in terms of words, you allow people to give you their views, opinions, and suggestions in terms of words. And then when the other side we say quantitative research, that research is in terms of numbers. It is, other people say, it is a numerical. Bracket, it is a numerical. You are still looking at your boyfriend. So it's okay. No. Anyway, it's a joke. Now we are saying that quantitative research is presented in terms of numbers. Other people say it is numerical. Other people use a vocabulary of statistical. But you are talking about quantity. Now, in that research, you will find that if the other one say, "Oh, why are the teachers not doing well?" and then he said, "It is salary. We want to measure it. Are they not paid at all, or they are paid?" Then he said, "It is because their salary range is between two, maybe 500,000 shillings." Then we shout, "Oh, it's because it's that below that. What if it is above to 1 million? Would they improve? Why is the enrollment low?" This is, but we want to know, what do you mean by low enrollment? You give us a number. Does low enrollment mean 1,000 learners? In some schools which are 7,000 learners, 2,000 learners are low enrollment. So we have to define in terms of numbers what we mean. So in this research, you'll find the percentages, You find frequencies and mean, standard deviation, all those mathematical measurements to define a scenario. Then mixed research approach, that one blends the two. It is the same research but has qualitative and quantitative in it. Yes, it's a mix of the two. It is a combination of that, yeah. So for that case, if we is 70, you say runners in Mbale um, are, are, only 25% of learners in Mbale are having first grade, meaning 75 not first grade. Then possibly we can say that is that low or high. We start to explain by qualitative now why the 25. So it's quantity explained by quality, or quality explained by quantity. Yes. That's why we have complementary approaches to those three, which we call, there's what we call explanatory sequential. You can write it down. Explanatory sequential research approach. Explanatory sequential research approach. In it, there, in that approach, we get quantity. We present quantity first. The quantity is presented first, and then the qualitative narratives or words are presented after. Are presented after. So that means that if you were to present that, you could say uh, the, the school enrollment dropped from 20 or from 200 to 150. Then you explain. This is because the school fees was increased, and then the parents started demonstrating and withdrew their children. That is now explanatory sequential. Quantity first, followed by the narrative, yes. And then there is another one called exploratory sequential. From explore, exploratory sequential. That one, the narrative or quality is presented first, then the quantity last. Then the quantity is presented last. So that one starts with a story. At the beginning, of the term, we increase the fees up to we increase the fees, and the parents felt disappointed and demonstrated and withdrew their children. By the end of the term, the enrollment had dropped from this to that. So that is exploratory sequential. Okay. So there you'll find the relationship between qualitative and quantitative research in your in your in your finding. You have a relationship between qualitative and quantitative research. I'll share with you resources that have all that. Then we also have what we call classifications of research. So we have what we call basic versus applied research. Basic versus applied. That is research classified based on basis of aim. Aim. Mhm. We are classifying that based on the aim. Aim. Mm. Basing, if we classify basing on aim, we have basic versus applied. So the aim of research, is it basic research or applied? In real life, we say, because for you people, you are in the university setting and not necessarily organization. So you're being introduced to research. So you're studying basics of research to initiate you that later on you'll be able to apply research and come up with the new products, improve educational settings in there. So basic research we do, it is like primary research, which introduces you to testing out things to see whether how they work out. You can modify, but later on you come up with something written to present, other than applying in the field. However, when you go further, there's applied research where you find out why is this school, why is it that head teachers keep on leaving the school. Head teachers stay for a year and they seek for transfers. That one is seeking for solutions that must be applied to make sure that head teachers stay in the school, other than coming up with a document to present them. And they will listen to it very diligently. Say, ah, what you are saying is not proper. Because we had done that one with the previous head teacher, and that head teacher still went. And just they said, yes. Then they say, please find out more. So then we also have another classification based on the method of investigation. Based on method of investigation. For for that case, we have historical research. Yes. There, you're investigating past events. How did the hospitals handle the influx of patients during COVID-19. Then you'll find out that they went and used some of the schools. They had to hire tents and accommodate people in the fields. Others went and took over hotels. You see those strategies, they are not current but historical. Then descriptive research is also lies under there. Descriptive, it is based on investigation, another form of research. That kind of research that they are described, it tends to investigate what is the situation, what are the circumstances, and that lead to a phenomenon to happen. So it is more qualitative also as well. Then there is also correlational research. Correlational research. Correlational research. Correlational research is research we undertake from the word correlation. Relation, which is correlation. Correlation, which is creating relationship between two or more things, which we call variables. It is creating relationship between two or more variables. What happens when we increase learners and the fees collection? You're correlating learner enrollment versus fees collections. And then experimental research. That form of research is intended to investigate the cause-effect relationship between events in a controlled environment. Mhm. In a controlled environment. So if you were to see whether this pen can balance on this finger, then you have to create a controlled environment and say that there not be wind. They may not to shake the hand. So that all other factors that would have affected the relationship are closed out. Then we also have what we call exposed x ex post factor. It is the word factor, but it doesn't have an R. So expository research is research which we carry out when we are not able. Is open. When we are not able to control some of the what of the factors that can affect the relationship. Uh, for example, we 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 have no we have no in we have no limitation of heavy removing the fact that heavy rains will happen, and therefore if we are to protect our gardens from the effect of heavy rains, what do we do? That is research. You cannot control heavy rains, but you're going to find a solution on having your fields, your plants well during heavy rains. So what do you do? Do you roof the garden? Do you investigate how you can roof the garden? Now, where the fact the other variable is so strong to control that research, then it means that you're not going to control heavy rains, but you're going to find how to handle. Maybe if that place is affected by heavy rains, you have to find plants that can withstand heavy rains. Then that community, beans may not be recommended if they can't. Now you also find out research, case study research. So with the case study research, we study one particular element throughout and draw conclusion on it. If it was case study, one can study him, one student, and follow that student through for like 3 years, and he said this is how student has to be helped because I found that this student needed this requirement, the other requirement. You follow one. If it is case study, you can follow one school, study one school like that. Uh-huh. Then we also have ethnographic research. Ethnographic. That research is intended to investigate events that happen within a specific group of people called an ethnic. Eh? From the word ethnic, specific group of people. So that ethnographers, if they want to study, they go and be like volunteers. They work with you. You don't even need to know that they are researchers. As for them, they observe and keep taking a note. Then they come up with a book about some communities. So members, in conclusion here, we shall study more on how to get the research process, and how to define research problems, how to write objectives, and to the detail in our other engagements, which I will keep sharing with you. We shall have. So we are concluding this session with principles of educational research. Here we say one of the principles is precision in measurement. Precision in measurement. Precision. Precision in measurement. Under there, that efforts, that principle states that efforts should be made to ensure that the measurements are accurate. So if your research is producing inaccurate results, it is violating that principle. Then replication is another principle. Replication. That principle shows replication. Replication. Mm. That principle shows that if one research, if you produce research from one field, that field, and another person also produces research, goes and does the very tests in the very same field, the results should be consistently the same or similar, other than being controversial. That is replication. Then the other one is called validity. Validity. Validity is about correctness of results. So the results have got to be correct. The other one is reliability. Reliability. The results are said to be reliable if they can be consistent when examined again and again. If you say somebody has malaria, but when we test on the head, you say there is malaria. On the leg, there is no malaria. And the same body. Uh-uh. And you say, for me, I tested the head. That's why for you, you tested legs and did not find. No. So objectivity, that the research should be, should not be biased. It should not be biased. If you're sent to a school to find out whether learners increased or reduced, and then you find that they reduce, but for you what you like the school, say you report that they will increase, you have bias. You're imposing your own idea, affecting the quality of research. Then also lastly is ethics. There we say that research has to follow ethics. If we investigated and found that in some schools they the head teacher is corrupt, so we don't say John Mulindwa is corrupt. In school they mention the name of the school, and then the parents that is unethical. Then that means for you, you are becoming a police officer, possibly, other than a researcher. But when you are your research, you say, please, we found that in some schools the head teachers are corrupt, and this is affecting parents. You don't need to mention their names. Thank you. Yes, well.